computer. Thank you. So, welcome everybody. My name is Barry Randall, and I'm the chair. I'm not the chair. I'm the managing director of the Grey Bruce Sustainability Network, the host of tonight's event, which is the third in a series of sustainable living workshops that we're presenting. And I'd first of all like to give a shout out to our sponsors. This series, in the midst of COVID, is a combination of our former sustainable living workshops, which we've done over the course of the last 6 or 7 years, that have been in locations around Grey Bruce, looking at unique things like straw bale construction and greenhouse designs and things like that, that are off-grid homes and that sort of thing, including lots of people that go and attend. It's also a blend of our Career Works program, which is a student-based program that takes kids out of the school and gives them hands-on experiential learning in all things sustainable. So in the midst of COVID, we've shifted to this online virtual setting, and we've engaged a local videographer, Kevin Moyes, who's helped us develop this series, and Witold Kreutzer, who is really the brainchild behind the event, and I'll introduce him just a little bit later. I'd like to thank Simona Farbergova, who's one of our board members and who will be working with the chat room. If you've got any questions, just pose them in the chat room, and Simona will whittle them down at the end of each presentation. We'll entertain those questions, and the people involved with the video hopefully are there online and they'll be able to respond. And other than that, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors. Bruce Power has been on board with us for a number of years, Ontario Power Generation, and Enbridge, and more recently during this series we've added Cook's Plumbing and Heating and Hyundai as specific sponsors for this event. And we do have other sponsors coming on board as well, and anybody that's interested in that can just give me a shout. If you want any more information on these events or our network, please just go to gbsusnet, gbsusnet.com, and there's information there all about the things we've done and the things we plan to do, and get you involved in projects on the ground. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Witold Kreutzer, who's one of our board members, and as I say, he's really the brains behind this event. And I'll just throw it over to Witold to introduce tonight's event.
Thank you, Barry. It's so nice to be called the brainchild, so I'll try to maintain a childlike attitude as opposed to a childish one. Tonight we're going to have a very good opportunity to look at 4 individuals and individual operations that can help anyone who's looking at building afresh, building new, adding additions, making adjustments to their existing homes, doing retrofits. I could have selected so many, but we just wanted to get a range of 3 or 4 to give people an idea that there are a variety of individuals in Grey Bruce that can be very helpful in anything one wants to do as far as improving on one's home life for energy efficiency, lower your costs, and to make a home more energy efficient in one way, shape, or another. Because we have so much going on, I think I'm going to start, and we're going to start with the very first video very quickly. One of the things that one may want to determine is, well, how am I supposed to know how I can be more energy efficient if I don't know how energy efficient my home is? So the first speaker that we went to approach, and we were very fortunate that we interviewed Dan Blenkinsop, who is a registered energy advisor. And we had a very good time at his home. And I'm hoping that that Kevin can set us up so we can see what Dan has to offer in the video, and afterwards we will hopefully have a few questions that Dan is here can answer as well. So Kevin, can you please help me, and let's go for the first video of the evening. And this afternoon, we have the privilege of speaking with Chris Vander Hout. Oh, I think that that's our second video. So can we try maybe again and see if we can get Dan this time? And I have to admit, Chris did a wonderful job, and he's with us tonight as well. So he will be second on the list. And so let's see if we can get a chance to see what Dan had to say when we visited his house up in the Wyerton area.
Vito, did you see the image on the screen?
No, I have a totally blank black screen.
That's what I had too.
So let's just see where we can head to now. How are we heading there, Kevin?
Here's an I do have a copy of the video myself. I'll see if just as a backup.
Kevin, you're on mute.
There, I'm unmuted now. Something froze up here. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we got the video fixed up. In 2 weeks' time, we'll do another episode on food and agriculture tours. So we'll be told to be visiting Saugeen River CSA and Side Road Farm. And then in January 26th, a great episode on local food distribution. So eat local Great Bruce and Owen Sound Farmers Market.
I'm going to play this now, okay?
Yep.
Right on. Thanks a lot.
Is that working there now?
Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to have you. We have Dan Blenkinsop here, who are on his back porch, and we're going to be talking about energy auditing. And Dan, you have been a registered energy auditor for a while. Well, what does it mean to be an energy auditor?
To be an energy auditor, you have to be registered with Natural Resources Canada because when I perform an energy audit, the ultimate goal is I have to generate an EnerGuide rating label. And so there's quite a few things that they test us on before we become registered. And every 2 years you have to go back and be re-registered. So you know, when you're hiring an energy auditor, I guess they assume we know what we're doing.
And someone just can't become a registered energy auditor. There are criteria.
Yeah, there's a list of things you have to know, and everything from the building code
I can control it
to
myself.
the EnerGuide rating system for residential properties. There's quite a few ministry documents that you have to be familiar with. And then, so
I haven't
when you
even
study
watched
for the
this one.
test, you book an
Is it all
exam.
him sitting there?
It's a proctored exam, so you have to go somewhere where somebody can watch you write it, and it's done on the computer. And if you pass, you're an energy advisor. And if you don't pass, you got to go back and take the test again.
So why would someone want to hire you?
Well, that's the thing is, as an energy advisor, I have to work for a service organization who is also registered with NRCan. And each service organization would have energy auditors in just different geographic areas. And then when I complete one of my audits and I do all the paperwork and do all the filing, it goes to my service organization. They vet it, do QA analysis on it before they send it to the government server. And then in Ottawa, they have a server that keeps track of every house that has an energy audit done.
And what does an energy audit entail?
Basically, when I go to a house, I have to calculate its heated volume. So a lot of measurements, perimeter area, height of ceilings and that. And then I have to assess the building envelope and determine its construction. Then I have to figure out the fenestration in that building envelope, and that's the number of windows and their dimensions and the doors and their dimensions. And then I have to look at the high vac infrastructure. So how is the house heated, how is it cooled, how it's ventilated, as well as, what does it do to make hot water. And then I take all that data that I collect and I, air quote, build a house in the government software. And then the government software, based on what I tell it, and I also do a blower door test, which calculates how many air changes an hour. That's a really important factor in generating the EnerGuide label. So the software does that. It also produces a homeowner's report, and most audits I do involves me making suggestions for upgrades to make the house more efficient. And so a second report produced called the upgrade report. And that all comes out of the government software. After you do all that, the homeowner, I send that stuff to the homeowner. They get their EnerGuide rating, so they're encouraged to place that on the fuse box, because it's just like the sticker on a new car or a sticker on a dehumidifier. It tells you what the energy consumption of that house. So we're talking about putting an EnerGuide rating label on your house, so that people, when you go shopping, whether you're shopping for a fridge or dryer, you're looking at that EnerGuide label, because hopefully you're looking for the most efficient product, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with a house. So if you're in the shopping for a new house, you should be looking for that EnerGuide label for that house, because the house might be pretty, but it could be an energy pig. And for the next 20 years, you're going to pay for that house.
Yep.
Where if you're shopping for a house that's a little more efficient, has more insulation, new windows, all that stuff, and sure, it's probably going to cost you more money to buy that house, but you know what? So is a more efficient vehicle, or so
Yes.
more efficient fridge. They're going to cost money because in the long run, they're going to be cheaper to operate.
Now, Dan, you mentioned a few things. If I can go back, you mentioned the building envelope. What is that?
The building envelope basically is the boundary between what you're paying to keep warm or cold and Mother Nature. So basically, we call it a rule of thirds. 1/3 is going to be the basement, so the walls of the basement, or if you happen to have it's an open crawl space, so like the wind blowing through there. So think like a cottage that's up on blocks or something. In that case, the floor would be the building envelope. And then you have the main walls of the house, and then you have the ceiling. And that's where you put your insulation. So your basement should have like R24 in it. Your walls should have as much as you can put into the space between the studs. And then your attic should be up to at least R60 now.
Okay. And now the other phrase that you mentioned is the homeowner report. What is that?
Well, the homeowner report is a report that's generated by the software. Looks something like this. And it's a few pages long, 5 pages long. And it's very informative to the homeowner, because it breaks down how you use the energy consumed in your house, through heating and cooling and appliances and that. And then it tells you where your home loses the most heat. So I've prepared a report for this place here, and it tells me my biggest heat loss is air leakage. Well, this house was built in 1883. They weren't thinking about air sealing back then. In fact, they encouraged leaky houses because they're heating the house with coal, and you'd wake up dead if your house was too airtight, right? Where now houses are, they're so airtight you have to put in mechanical ventilation.
When you do your analysis and you give a report, like an upgrade report, how do you determine which upgrades are included?
Well, part of my job is listening to the homeowner. And most people, when they call me to do an energy audit, they already kind of know they have a project in mind, right? And most of my energy audits are done because there's some sort of grant program or incentives available. So a lot of times they'll get a quote off some installation company, and the installation company says, you call Dan, he can get you $1,250 back for insulating your basement, for example. And so they call me mostly because they want to get the incentive. But on the other hand, they're calling me because they already know where they're going. So I go through the house, and then I might notice other things because I have to go up in the attic and take a peek up there. A lot of homeowners have no idea what's up there. And when I come down and say, you know, you only have R20, which is like 6 inches. It's supposed to be R60, which is like 18 inches. And they're like, whoa. So when you send them these reports, I also generate the homeowner's upgrade report. And when you get that, it actually tells you, if you do that, you'll save this many gigajoules a year. So when you present it to a homeowner like that, all of a sudden they're saying,
Not only do you offer a service, but I assume that people who are making use of you are people basically not newer homes. You're basically looking at all variety of homes?
I basically, I'm registered to do residential energy buildings, right? And so think houses, detached houses, row houses, but if they're like a mixed-use building, I think most of our downtowns, they have a store on the main street, there's apartments upstairs. I'm not licensed to do houses like that, or commercial or industrial products. So my places are basically where people live.
Okay.
And most of them are owners of that house, because the way that they're registered within our CAN is based on the tax roll number. So if you're a renter, usually my program's not applicable to like just the apartment. I'd have to do an audit on the whole house, right?
Yeah. Now, you did mention the EnerGuide labels. What should a client or I do with one?
Well, the EnerGuide label gets printed up like this. That's the size of it. And the idea is you're supposed to take this and affix it to the fuse box. And on it, for example, this is one of my houses. It says this house uses 83 gigajoules a year. And it says underneath an average typical new house. So if this house, instead of being built in 1883, was built next week, it would use 83 gigajoules. So if this is a weird house, it's not supposed to be that way. Normally your house will be higher because a new house would be built to building code. And then with...
Can you explain what and if there are any current home efficiency rebates offered?
Actually, yeah, there currently is. Like my work sometimes is tenuous because I'm just a contractor. And so when weird things like COVID happen and they shut everything down, you know, I just don't work because I work every time I do a house, and
Yes.
that's where I make my money. So, and it depends on governments too. So the current program is done by Union Gas, and they're just actually a couple of weeks ago upgraded the rebate amounts for installation. So there's a chart, you know, I don't really want to read through everything, but for example, we were talking about a basement. You go R24, add R24 to a basement, the grant's now $1,250. And it's like going up, like we mentioned with the attic, up to R18 in an attic, you can get $650 for that. There's money for windows, there's money for replacing furnaces and boilers. As I mentioned, I do a blower door test, and the idea is when I come back the second time and do the blower door test, it should be better. So there's a grant for that as well. All the grants max out at $5,000, so it's the maximum you can get for that. When you add up all these things, half my phone calls are people just figuring it out. Because Union Gas Enbridge, I mean, they're offering incentives, so they're like kind of giving money away. They don't really advertise that. You find most places don't advertise that. And so I find a lot of my business is by word of mouth, by either homeowners that I've helped out before, or I'm in constant contact with installation companies and high-back contractors and that. So a lot of them are aware of the grants. And that's usually how I'll get a phone call. And
What's been your experience, and what do you feel the goal behind improving one's home's energy efficiency?
well, the one thing I would say, the first reason why, because everybody wants to save money. right? So if you can get your gas bill down, yay, most people are happy to do that. As I was talking with the rule of thirds with the building envelope, let's say let's say your gas bill is $100 a month, because it's easier to do math. I hope you don't have a $100 gas bill. But if you were getting a $100 gas bill and your basement was uninsulated, you're paying $30 a month to melt snow. Think of it that way. Another interesting angle, I mean, the one thing that I really, I enjoy the job because every house is different. I like doing math. I like solving problems like that. But the one thing that I think when somebody asks me, really, what is it about your job? I also can figure out how many tons of carbon each house will save if they do these upgrades. So when I look at this house save 5 tons, that house save, how many tons of carbon have I saved the planet in the last 12 years of doing this job? And the third reason why people would want to get this audit done is they say it's a dollar per dollar value. So say you spent $3 grand on that basement insulation. Well, your house, $275, is now worth $280 because that's an easy sell for the future buyers of your house. Is if your house uses less energy, you can ask more money for it, right?
In today's world, we are dealing with COVID-19, but there's still many people who are concerned about climate change. So this would be an excellent way for anyone who is in doubt whether they could do something to help climate action by just improving their home efficiency.
Well, I don't know if you were listening to the throne speech a week ago. They actually mentioned in the throne speech how important, when you think of how many houses are in Canada, and if each house can knock it down a couple of tons of carbon just by putting new windows or adding more attic insulation, how many tons is the...
If you had anything advice to offer people who were not sure of how energy efficient their homes are, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, talk is cheap. A lot of my phone calls are people just wanting to know. So, often if somebody calls me, I'll ask them, what do you got in your basement? How old's your furnace? Have you been in how old's the house actually too, right? And so usually it's not too much of, The other thing is with this rebate program, you have to pay me up front when I come do a service at your house. But if you're with the rebate program, they pay back my costs. So that's another thing a lot of people sometimes, you're going to charge me $400. It's like, yeah, but you get it back when you finish the program, sort of thing.
Excellent. Well, so Dan, I thank you very much. I'm definitely had learned a great deal about trying to make use of your services.
We need more light, way more light.
I don't have any more light.
Well, thanks. We do have now Dan with us, and I believe that there were some questions that were asked. So Simona, can you help and guide us through some questions, and let's see how good we can make Dan think tonight.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I have 3 questions. How much does it cost to have an energy audit done?
For the initial energy audit, the cost is $400. If you're doing a program like the Union Gas program where you need a second audit done, that's another $200.
Thank you. The other question is, can you only get rebates if you're on natural gas?
Not always. You have to be specifically a Union Gas or Enbridge customer. If you happen to live in the areas where they're now starting to get natural gas, like in Carden, where I am tonight, that is serviced by a company called EPCOR. They don't offer a program right now. So you have to be one of the questions I ask when I first book an appointment is, do you have a Union Gas Enbridge account number?
Right, that makes sense. And one other question, what is the best insulation for walls? What would you recommend if you would go and choose insulation for walls?
It really depends on the structure of the house, okay? say you're talking about maybe most early century houses that were built with 2x4s with hollow walls, and they might have like insul brick and then maybe some siding, and on the inside it could be plaster, it could maybe be an early form of sheetrock. Those, they work best with the drill and fill method. You go every 16 inches, drill a hole, pump in some cellulose insulation. If it's a balloon frame house, you can do that from the very top of the house on the second floor, and it will go all the way to the bottom and fill up the walls. It's most cost effective too. My favorite insulation material is spray foam. If you have a double brick house, or if you have a house made with like cinder blocks and that, with plaster that's right on those blocks, it's like living in a cave. It's nice in the summer, you burn a lot of heat in the wintertime. Unfortunately, to do those houses, you have to gut them from the inside, re-stud them with 2x4s, then spray foam. But then those houses are like bomb shelters. They are so efficient. New construction, still you would be going with probably 2x6 construction, and they would be putting Roxol in the walls, which is getting up close up to R20. So it really depends on the construction style of the house.
Right. Thank you for that.
What is your service area then?
As far as I know, I'm the only registered energy advisor in Grey and Bruce County. Most energy advisors that you might hire have sort of a contract that stipulates that they don't charge gas mileage for the first 50 kilometers of a trip. And so based on that, I can drive almost to Tobermory, I can drive down past Port Elgin over towards Meaford without charging mileage, because I'm in Wyerton. And then even then, if I have to say go to Kincardine, or I have to go down to Hanover and that, my mileage is only going to be $10, $15. Where if you hire another company and they're sending somebody over from Barrie or London, the homeowner is going to incur more of a mileage charge.
Great. How about assessment for an oil furnace or reducing oil use? Any rebate program on that?
There is currently no rebate program for that. As I mentioned in the documentary, it really depends on governments. For example, just over 2 years ago, we had a different provincial government, and that government funded the Enbridge program. And the IESO, which is the guys that run the electricity, they jumped on the bandwagon. And just before the Conservatives won that election, that program was, you could have oil, you could have wood, you could have propane, and they would pay for upgrades with those heating sources because the provincial government was funding it. And with the IESO, they had grants for heat pumps, they had grants for air conditioners. It was back almost like Eco Energy 10 years ago, when the Liberal federal government set up a program, and the provincial government matched it. So you would get like $500 from the federal government, and the province would give you another $500. It was a great program. So like even with that old program, geothermal, you would get $5,000 from the federal government, $5,000 per province, $10,000 for geothermal. That's 1/3 of the cost of an installation. So it depends on the government. Right now, we have a Liberal minority government that keeps paying lip service to doing things environmental. And like the programs that I deal with just scream, like how many houses are in Canada? And if each house could just improve their energy efficiency just by a little percent, like think of how we could meet our goals. So all I can do is say right now, the only thing is if you have natural gas with Union Gas, I can help you. Otherwise, keep praying for good things coming up with budgets and announcements on these new initiatives.
What would you recommend on the uses of propane then?
Right now, I've actually done a few audits up in Lions Head, and natural gas does not go north of Wyerton. And these folks actually seriously pay for the audit, for my advice, and to get that EnerGuide rating. and to get the homeowners report where they can see where they're losing energy and then they can address those issues. They know they're not going to get any grant money. They just want to know what they can do, right? So if you're a propane owner right now, the only thing I could do is give you an audit and give you my advice. I can't get you any initiatives right now.
Cool. And the best way to get in touch with you is blank@bmts.com.
Yeah, that's my email address.
Cool.
Otherwise, you can give me a phone call too.
Oh, what's your phone number then?
You can call home and leave a message on my machine, which is 519-534-4284.
519. Oh, perfect. Lee got it. Perfect. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll move to the next one. Thank you.
All right, well, I have to thank Dan for time at his home and tonight. The one good thing that I found is that it's always nice to have a third-party objective person who knows what they're talking about as far as ways of saving on energy, and the added feature of getting rebates. People may also want to check at the beginning of every year for the Grey County, Ontario Renovates program, where you can get I guess it's a forgivable loan of up to $15,000 for repairs. But you can't sell for 10 years or you got to repay what you.
Actually, if I can interject, there is also a Bruce County one too. But yeah, those, I've known people that have taken advantage of those, and they don't open applications till about this time in December, and come the middle of January, the money's gone. It's such a popular program.
Yeah, that's exactly. So thanks for helping me there, Dan, because I was going to mention that. So the idea is that whatever your plans are, it's always nice to have someone like Dan around to help.
Can I add one more thing? I've started with a new company, Reg Energy, and they promote this program that I actually know about, but nobody takes advantage about. It's called the Green Homes Refund. And it's a mortgage insurance premium refund that you can get if you have purchased your house through CMHC, Genworth, or Canada Guarantee. And if you improve the energy efficiency of the house you just bought, you can get up to a 25% rebate on your insurance premium. So say you're getting like a mortgage for $700-something thousand, and the premium's going to be something like, I don't know, $30,000. You could get 1/4 of that back as a check from the bank just by improving the energy efficiency of your house. So that's another new thing I'd like to throw out there on top of that. If you're buying a house that's a bit older and you realize it might need some loving, you could, and you're buying a high ratio mortgage like that, I can get you some money back. And then you can piggyback if it's got union gas and get grant money for what you're doing anyways.
Thank you, Dan. Well, let's now proceed to the second video. Kevin and I were very fortunate to visit the home of Chris Vander Hout down in the Ayton area. He is basically one of the principal individuals at Evolve Builders Group. I got to know of him from a variety of sources, some of which are people who work on one of his crews. And we were very fortunate to, as I say, visit Chris in his own home to show that he lives by the principles that he promotes in his business. So again, Kevin, if I can get you to set up Chris on his on the interview we did with him a few months ago.
And this afternoon, we have the privilege of speaking with Chris Vander Hout, who has a company called Evolve Builders that has allowed us to join him in his house. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here with you.
Now, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about what type of service you offer and something about your company?
Yeah, so I work for Evolve Builders Group, and I'm a co-owner with Ben Pauly from Guelph, Ontario. And we run a green construction company that focuses on all the environmental aspects of construction.
And basically, I assume that your clientele would be located in this area of the Grey Bruce, is what?
Yes. So I live in Grey Bruce, and that's one of the things that I take care of, and have helped with all the work up in this area. And yes, we service this entire area.
And how long have you been in business?
About 12 years.
So you're just not off the street.
That's right. I got to make sure I get the number right there, but we'll do that after.
That's it. And basically, what motivated you and your co-owners as far as why you look at green construction as being important?
Yeah, well, when I used to be a tool and die maker in the industry, and I was really interested in building and construction, same as my partner Ben, and I always wanted to do something that would link me up to my passions with caring for the environment and what have you. And green construction was just a perfect fit because I love building, love creating, and it was nice to marry those two things together.
Can you help us? What is green construction?
Yeah, so green construction, sometimes green can be a word that's used a lot, can get watered down. But, ultimately we're thinking about, impacts on the earth. We're thinking about all the indoor air quality for homes. We're thinking about the use of natural products. We're thinking about energy conservation. So, those are generally the things that we're thinking about through green construction.
And Chris, now you mentioned various green items, but we're in a house and we see a lot of natural products. So you do take into consideration more than just the materials of where the house is located and how long you want the house to maintain a good living arrangement for your clients.
Absolutely. So, we're thinking about orientation of the house, that we're taking advantage of the passive solar that, we've got this sun beaming down, providing us free energy all the time. So we want to capitalize on that. Of course, the building the house so it's long lasting, so that it's a product that isn't going to be a hindrance to future generations.
I would assume that you have knowledge, and could you allow or give us some of the natural building materials that you have used and are using?
Sure. We use a large variety of things. Some of the real green stuff would be like earthen plasters, earthen floors. So those are all clay derived, so really just straight from the ground. So that's a really hyper green product. We'd use natural finishes like natural oils. So for hardwood, instead of putting a chemically intense product on it, we're using natural tung oils and what have you. Zero VOC paints. Now that's more common now, but 10 years ago or so when we were doing things, we'd been doing that already then.
So indoor air quality is a very important aspect of the green construction.
Well, I think we always have to think about ourselves as part of the environment. And if we aren't treating ourselves well and keeping healthy ourselves, then it's no different. And so, and all these products that are, have a lot of VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, I mean, they're chemicals out there anyway. So the indoor air quality and having an environmental conscience kind of run hand in hand. And the benefit is, of course, that you stay healthy.
Now, I do notice that where we're sitting is that many of these natural materials are surrounding us. whether it's the types of wood you use, the amount of window spacing south, and the floor, where we have a great deal of thermal mass. That's probably part of every aspect of a home that you're designing.
Yeah, it definitely can be. You know, it comes down to customers' desires and sometimes affordability. You know, so sometimes when you buy features, there's a cost to it. So that's a consideration. Also, now that we're more heavily involved in the passive house movement, which is technology that has come out of Germany initially, although the first actual passive house was in Saskatchewan. So the pioneering happened also in, you know, relative to Canada. But that they found that the thermal mass thing actually wasn't as important as we thought it to be for so many years. So through the new design software that they've developed, through really good solid building science, we found that the elements of the passive design don't always have to incorporate a lot of thermal mass.
What would they have to incorporate?
Yeah, so the pieces of a passive home that are important are the first of all, a really good air barrier. So an air barrier that's bringing up an air exchange of about 0.6 air changes per hour, which won't mean anything to anybody unless they know it. But an R2000 home, which was our best home prior to that, is 1.25. So we're dramatically, 1.5. So we're dramatically improving upon that performance. So air tightness needs to be there. We have no thermal bridges, so we eliminate thermal bridges in the construction process. So that's,
and that means what?
Yeah, so that means products that are going to transmit heat and or cool, so thermal conduction through their, you know, through them. So we need to make sure we have a continuous insulation layer.
What type of insulation do you normally incorporate in your designs?
Well, so for passive house, it really doesn't matter what kinds you use, although we like to think about using ones that have a low carbon footprint, so, you know, less embodied energy. Cellulose is a product, a commonly used one that we apply. Choosing more environmentally preferable foams at this moment. We'll use fiberglass, not fiberglass, but Roxol insulation, which is produced from slag. So there's, you know, products there, a byproduct.
And I assume that people who come to you are looking to do a few things. To lower their carbon footprint, but also to be more energy efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, for the energy efficiency part, I think people know that that's what we want. Plus, at the end of the day, we save money in our pocketbooks. However, the byproduct of using less energy is we produce less carbon when we're using less fossil fuels. And that's, you know, that's the name of the game. And one of the big factors that we're, you know, thinking about with green construction and the passive house system. So maybe to further on the passive house system, because, you know, as we were talking through that, we've got the no thermal bridging, we've got an air barrier, we've got high performing windows. So we're using triple glazed windows where the frame and the installation of that window, the systems that are used are critical to get the kind of performance we need that will allow it to meet the passive standards. We have a highly efficient, up to 75% efficient HRV, so heat recovery ventilator. So that provides us with the kind of air quality we need. And that it's all been factored down to the minute particle of like how much carbon dioxide you can have in your environment and stay healthy. And so all those things all get factored in there so that, you know, a person can be in their home, they can be comfortable and healthy.
Now, what about the person who already lives in a house that they're relatively happy with and want to renovate or have an addition?
Yeah, well, there's passive retrofits. So, you know, that's the great thing about this standard. And what I really love about it, it gets us away from guessing. So I think in the building industry, certainly in Canada, over, you know, so as long as I could imagine and we know, we kind of guess at how well the house is going to work. And we use this like term like, oh, it's energy efficient. Oh, what does that mean? Right? There's no real values to it. So we can actually produce and build a home to a specification with known results. And so in the passive retrofits, you can design it and put it through the design software to get known outcomes.
If I'm coming to you as a client, how much of a say do I have in how I want it to look, or do you make the appropriate suggestions and I choose?
Yeah, so, you know, everything comes down to design when you're starting a project, obviously. And with a new home, you know, obviously you have all the choices, and there's things that you need to consider. One of them is area to volume ratio. So it's the shape. If you have an inefficient shape because there's too many corners and jigs and jogs, then you're gonna lose a lot of energy in that shape. So having a shape that works to give you the right kind of performance is important. So that's a consideration. Aside from that, you can build a house to how you want it to look and feel and all the rest, and then just meet all the rest of the criteria.
So based upon the criteria that you have set as your minimum standard, you work with your client and as an individual trying to cater to their also living habits.
Absolutely, and you know, there's lots of pre-designed passive homes that they can choose from. We work in conjunction with some different designers. So, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, making the selections and choices and finding something that works for you know, the individual.
And for the person who says, well, you know, I live in town, or I'm surrounded by trees, or how can you help me?
Yeah, so I think the thing about the passive retrofit piece is that they understand that. And then if you can't, say, take advantage of your solar gain because you have shading from a building, then there's other things you do to make up that difference.
And your homes, have you have a history of how long that their lifespan is, what they're going to have improved?
Yeah, well, so building homes to last a long time is always hard to know because they're supposed to outlive us. And it's nice to think about something like a 7th-generation kind of thought, you know, an indigenous philosophy that makes a lot of sense. So, you know, a lot of it's based on speculation and what we understand. But, you know, a great example I like to use is the difference between an asphalt roof and a steel roof. So we have an asphalt roof that, you know, will get anywhere from 10 to 20, 25 years at the very best, versus a steel roof, which is going to give us 50 years. And those are known quantities.
Can I also ask you about your feelings towards renewable energy?
Yeah, well, I mean, renewable energy, of course, is where we need to go to, you know, wean ourselves off fossil fuels, to get our, you know, our carbon footprint down, and, you know, to go towards this carbon neutral economy. So, I mean, I think renewable energy is just a no-brainer, and it's just a matter of how we get there.
And then you come across people who will say, well, this type of new passive and renewable, and, you know, I think I'm well past that, or do I have to go back to the dark ages of living?
Yeah, and, you know, and that's the thing. We really don't, and none of the homes we build are anything like that. As a matter of fact, I would say with the passive system, we can build homes that are more comfortable than ever. And so we don't need to go backwards at all. We're actually going forward, and we're going forward in a positive way. And I think, you know, have the potential to make a real impact.
Some people may also say, well, can I afford to go the route that you're suggesting?
Yeah, well, you know, often good things cost money. And when you do build something good, it lasts long. The good part about building with energy efficiency in mind is that your yearly cost to run your building go down. So yes, is there going to be an extra cost? Well, yeah, you can't put triple glazed windows in for the same price as double glazed. However, we found that there's an equation there. And for that upgrade on the recent house we built, it was a 10-year return on, like, payback, and an 8% return on investment. So, you know, I guess it's pay me now or pay me later.
It seems like you've done your homework to cater to anyone who's interested in improving their home.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, being able to do the renovation piece and doing the, you know, new home construction, I mean, those are the pieces we're working for. Those are the clients that, you know, have the needs.
From what you're saying, I have to say that why aren't more people doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's bound to happen. I mean, necessity is the mother of all invention, and I think we'll get to that place of necessity. In the meantime, I think we have a big machine that's just kind of clunking away, and trying to slow that machine down and turn it to go into the direction we want it to go that will be better for the longevity of humans. It's going to take some time, and you know, all those people who would have to transfer their skill sets and or think differently, having a different paradigm to it.
And in particular with Evolve Builders, how do you see your future now?
I see the future is very green.
And I just wanted to say that we are now in your home, and you do live by the principles that you have just been mentioning that you supply to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things when I started and was interested in this, in green construction and doing what we're doing, the first thing I wanted to do was build a house of my own, to really know how it all works, to know how it all feels. And then I felt like I was in a good place to really share and to, you know, transfer those things to other people, to give those things to other people.
Would you be willing, Chris, to give us highlights of your home that you exceptionally feel good about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our home is heated completely by, well, not completely, I should say. Our home is fueled by wood from our forest, and we have a lot of natural finishes in our home. We have clay walls, we have earthen floors, we have almost all of the hardwood was harvested right from our forest, and all finished with natural oil finishes. We used all zero VOC paints and what have you.
I'm also noticing how many windows you have.
Right, yes, and of course we oriented the house to the south to take advantage of the sun's energy, and we applied a green roof to our home. We have a composting toilet and a complementary gray water system that basically uses that gray water to feed plants as opposed to just trying to get rid of it. And
well, it's almost like I'm getting the point from you that spending a few extra dollars initially, but for the rest of the time that you're living in the home, you're saving money.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you're saving money on energy bills, but there's another piece in there about being happy in a space. And I don't know if there's a price tag for that. You know, when you're in a comfortable home, when you're in a home that you feel, you know, was done with the right principles, or you know it was done with the right principles and has the right kind of feeling to it, you know, I don't know if we got a price tag.
Well, thank you very much for having us here. Is there any last thoughts, final thoughts you'd like to offer to the people who are watching us?
I think the only thing I can think of is, you know, we all do our best, And you know, it's sometimes initially it's small steps, and then you know we start getting moving, and we keep improving, and you know we just work in the spirit of improvement and cooperation.
Well, thank you very much for
Well, that was a very nice afternoon that Kevin and I had at Chris's home. So if any of you have any questions for Chris, because he is with us tonight, and I guess I can pass it on now to Simona.
Yes, Chris, I have a question. What would be the eco substitute for drywall in a standard house if you want to avoid drywall?
Yeah, well, certainly plasters are a substitute, and certainly earthen plasters are probably the most environmental substitute whenever we don't have to do any deep mining. That's a positive thing. Wood finishes are also good when they come from a renewable source.
You mentioned also clay. You have a clay in your house. How do you do that?
Yeah, so the clay is basically put into a plaster that's mixed with sand, also sometimes straw, and yeah, all natural products to and just let dry on the wall.
Cool. Would it be wise to replace the pink insulation for rock wall insulation, or what would you do if you have a pink insulation?
Well, if you have fiberglass insulation, which is often pink, and it's already in the wall doing its work, there's probably not much point in pulling it out and changing it for something else when it's going to end up likely in the landfill and it's in the walls doing its thing. And it's not a, it doesn't have like a negative air, like VO, it doesn't have any high VOCs or anything. So insulation that's performing in a wall is probably well left there, best left there unless there's some sort of a toxicity to it.
Right, thank you for the answer. How do the green principles apply to average home in an urban environment on the gas and electric grid?
You might have to repeat that. I'm not sure if I got the heart of the question there.
How do the green principles apply to the average home in an urban environment on the gas and electric grid?
Well, I think the green principles in respect to the grid and heating with gas are around energy efficiency and being able to, like we heard from Dan, determine the best way to make your home efficient so that you minimize the use of the resources.
Right. What do you think of ICF for basement?
Yeah, well, ICF is insulated concrete form for those people who don't know, and it's a commonly used product for basement foundations, and it's a very energy efficient system, which uses EPS foam, which has a low carbon footprint compared to some other kinds of foams. So it's good that way. I think, like I said in the video, you know, we're all learning. So sometimes we have to take the best option that we can get with what's available. And yeah, I think ICF foundations are still currently a good product for energy efficiency.
Cool, thank you. Next one, is the heat totally supplied by passive solar and wood? What about domestic hot water?
Right. So you don't necessarily get all your heat from a passive source in our climate, but the amount of electricity or other type of fuel used to heat the house is minimal, and the domestic water requirements for a home are very low in comparison to what it takes to heat the home. So in general, you know, most of our houses we're building are using electricity to create the domestic hot water if you're not using something else more renewable like a thermal solar system.
Right.
So using basically sun energy to heat the water.
Thank you. Would you use clay for floor as opposed to concrete? Would it have the same heat, mass absorbing properties?
Yeah, it'd be very similar. I wouldn't know technically how much, but they're both they're very dense, dense materials, and would definitely absorb heat in a similar fashion.
Cool. Have you ever seen hempcrete floor slabs? Do you reckon it would it work well?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with hempcrete. I know it's a popular item in some of the natural building magazines and books, and it's just not a product I have a lot of experience with.
When you build an on-grid home, what do you recommend for a heating system?
Right. So now when we're building passive homes, because they're only consuming about 15% of the energy that a typical conventional home, code-built home is using, because it's so low, we're recommending just to use that electricity because it's as good as, because the demand is so low that it's effective way of heating.
Thank you. There is a question. Somebody heard that double glazed windows have improved a lot. So aren't that different from the triple glazed windows? What do you think?
Yeah, you know, glazing has changed a lot, and it's very complex to, you know, even describe all the details and understand them for most people. However, from the heat modeling software that's being used and with all the data based on how those windows perform, triple glazing is still outperforming the double glazed windows significant enough that a passive designed home requires them to get the kind of performance it needs.
Cool, thank you. I think these are all questions so far.
Great, you're welcome.
Well, thank you, Chris, very much. You were there. I think our audience really put you to a test there. Thanks for being here tonight. And like I said, it's nice to see how you live. Is very much the kind of house that you actually build for people. And,
oh, well, thanks so much, Vidal. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to our third video. In this video, we were very fortunate to visit Luke Cook from the next generation of cooks at Cook's Plumbing and Heating. They just moved to a new location on just south of Owen Sound, right across from Stone Tree Golf Course. And I know that I have personally used his services when he helped me out on something that I couldn't find anyone else to help me with. And I went onto their website and I got lost for about 6 hours. So he was very nice to quickly give us an idea of what Cooks is about. And maybe if I can get Kevin to show us our little talk that we had with Luke.
Well, this afternoon we find ourselves at Cook's Plumbing, and we have the opportunity to speak with Luke Cook. Thank you for letting us take some of your time today.
Thank you, Vitold.
Luke, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Yes, so we're a family-run company. I'm generation 2. I've taken over from my father, who's the proprietor, with the assistance of my brother, who's come on board in the last 2 years as a master electrician. So we've been serving the community for 30 years. We've expanded our services from our roots, which were plumbing, into geothermal, and that bled into more heating, and now we are a full service, all your trades under one roof, right from heating, plumbing, ductwork, and electrical now.
And you're located now in a brand new location just south of Owensound, are you
We've
not?
recently moved locations, and we're still under construction of our new bathroom and fireplace showroom. We were bursting at the seams at our old location, and with the addition of electrical services, we had just run out of space.
What type of services do you offer the general public in our area?
We offer all mechanical services from propane furnaces, oil furnaces, electrical troubleshooting, plumbing, drain augering, and installation of all the equipment that is related to all that stuff.
Would you be kind enough to tell us some of the products and items that you do offer to your clients?
Yes. So well, with our bathroom and fireplace showroom, we are into the bathroom remodel environment, natural gas and propane fireplaces. We do point of sales out of our showroom for just general air filters and water filters and ultraviolet light bulbs that fall into our category. We do natural gas, propane, oil, wood furnace installations. We do ground sourced and air sourced heat pumps, ductless heat pumps, conventional air conditioners, ductless air conditioners, whole home new construction. We can take a whole home, all the mechanicals right from start to finish.
And when the customer comes to you, they're looking for your expertise. And am I right in saying that part of what your expertise is to lower the cost of living and to be as energy efficient as possible?
Yes, we definitely prioritize our more green initiatives, being the heat pumps and just offering more efficient, even carbon-based fuels. Upgrading into tankless water heaters, for instance, is one way to save if you're a natural gas user.
And basically, I assume you have, and your work crew has the background to show people the differences in the energy use of your products.
Absolutely. We offer many services, but we have an expert in every field, from refrigeration mechanics to gas fitters, oil fitters, master electricians, journeyman plumbers. So we do have an expert in every field that we deal in.
And I assume that you also help the customer simplify the vocabulary of how much it costs for a certain amount of power, whether it's wattage or BTUs. Can you help us just simplify that for them?
We often get questioned about if I do a heat pump, how much will it save me? Because there's more that incentivizes people than the green aspect of installing a heat pump. There's the financial aspect to it too. There's an investment to be made into your home and into green energy, and people like to figure out a return on investment is kind of a common term. And ultimately, you can do that, and you have to break down your cost per BTU. That's how most heating equipment is sized, by the BTU. And if you find the cost of your BTU, whether it be a watt of electricity, a liter of propane, or a gallon of oil, you can associate the cost per BTU to each one of those. And then by finding out what that BTU costs you, you can turn that, and you know how many BTUs you use. When you add in the efficiency of this heat pump, you can work backwards to this return on investment, and it's an estimate ultimately, but it will tell you what you would expect to reduce your utility cost by.
I also know you have quite a range of wood stoves. available for.
Absolutely, yes. And there's like in any market, there's a good, a better, and a best. And product to suit each. And the good wood stove is a cost-effective, I call it the utilitarian heater. It's a welded steel wood stove with fire bricks. And they have a lot of pros. They're very simple, they're cost-effective, they are still efficient. But a steel wood stove tends to heat up very quickly and cool off very quickly as well. So it's your temperature swing is much greater. When you get into maybe the better wood stove is a cast iron wood stove. They tend to be more decorative, more ornate, so there's some aesthetic bonuses to them as well. But the cast iron itself offers a benefit of the mass that it brings to the system. It takes a little longer to warm up. It holds that heat for longer. So you level out the spikes that you may get with wood heating. And the ultimate in that comfort is a soapstone wood stove. And the soapstone is a very dense, high mass material, and it gives you heat long after the flame has gone out. And so you're doing a less feeding of the fire, enjoying a more steady temperature, and generally that's going to equate to a little greater efficiency in your wood burning as well.
I would assume you also give people choices in various types of heat pumps and based upon what is more suited to their needs.
Absolutely. There are conventional air-sourced heat pumps. There are low ambient air-sourced heat pumps. They're newer to the market within the last decade, I guess. We've been installing them for around 10 years. Low ambient technology has really changed that. So they're able to produce heat in much lower outside temperatures. And then beyond that is a geothermal heat pump. And it has some benefits over the air-sourced heat pump because it gets to enjoy absorbing energy from a very constant ground temperature rather than the ever-changing outdoor ambient air temperature. So the ground source is the larger capital investment. They tend to have a lower operating cost out of all of the heat pumps. But they tend to fit into these larger leaky farmhouses is kind of the main market for them. High utility costs, have some land to work with for a ground loop. That tends to be where geothermal fits. Air-sourced heat pumps are available in slightly lesser size. So we can't fit them in every house, but for a smaller, more efficient space, a low ambient air-sourced heat pump is a great option. You lower your capital investment, you get similar operating costs to a geothermal, depending on the ambient temperatures of that year, and they're dramatically more efficient than our conventional air-sourced heat pumps, which tended to have a bit of a poor reputation in our climate due to our low ambient temperatures and our high moisture levels being near the lake. They freeze up and need defrost. They'd rely heavily on an electric supplement. So they're fading away a little bit in the market. The low ambients are really taking over from an operation cost standpoint. They make a lot of sense. But yeah, there really is, and they're available in ductless options too. If you don't have a distribution system, you can do ductless as well. So there really is a system that suits every home. And depending on energy requirements of the home, budget, I'm sure, we can generally steer you in the right direction.
Can I also ask you about the whole water issue? At this time, we're very concerned about the quality of water, especially if you're outside the own sound boundaries, and also how one effectively and efficiently heats water. Can you talk about those two items?
Yeah, so to touch on water quality, we offer all sorts of solutions from iron removal or water softeners to deal with the hardness, which with our rural properties living on wells, it's a common thing to have, iron, sulfur, and hardness. This seems to be very common in our area. And then bacteria sterilization with ultraviolet lights. So that's very commonplace for us is treating the water, and then efficient ways to heat the water is a whole other thing. And often you need to treat the water before you can heat the water, because when you heat the water, the minerals come out, much like your kettle. So these tankless water heaters are very sensitive, in fact, to water quality. Any product that is heating water on an open system where there's new minerals introduced all the time, treating the water first is important to reduce maintenance and extend longevity of the product. So we offer water heating solutions from a standard tanked water heater to they now have air sourced tanked water heaters, to tankless options, to even solar thermal water heating, where you can preheat a tank with solar energy and then feed your finishing tank or your existing water heater with preheated water. So that's a very green way to heat your water, and there are some cost-effective systems that do have a return on investment as well. So,
And I guess the last issue I'd like to talk about is the human issue, which is if I need work done or I have a problem, I hear the commercial about just call Cooks, which is right on your truck. Why should we call Cooks?
our business has been built on service. We service what we sell and what other people are installing too. So when somebody's in trouble, a large part of our business is being here to answer the phone and having a technician available in a reasonable response time to go and take care of that service issue. That's been a large part of our growth because service turns into new installations. Sometimes we're not able to fix the problem and it is time for equipment replacement. But we're there to make the diagnosis, assist you through the process, and get there promptly with a replacement piece of equipment. So a huge part of what has built this business to what it is the service aspect of it, rather than just straight installation of new product.
Well, Luke, I thank you very much for your time. I think that you've given us an awful lot of information. And I can only say that it's nice to have a dependable person that is not only knowledgeable, but is also helping people save money. So I thank you for partaking.
Thank you, Vitold, for giving me the opportunity to spread the word about Cook's Plumbing and Heating.
Well, that was a short but concise chat we had. So if anyone has any questions, I don't know, I haven't heard whether Luke is with us. So I may need help from other people in our production if Luke is with us. So if there are any questions that he would be able to answer. So I'm sort of at the whim of, is Luke with us?
I don't see him personally, unless he's under different name.
Okay. Yeah, because normally he did respond that he would be here tonight to answer questions. But so if there are any questions, I'll gladly take it to him. And whoever has a question, as long as I have an email address that Luke can reply to. That being said,
it seems like I have 3 questions that I can email you, and maybe we can get back to the people that I asked, or we can post it on website.
Very good. Okay. All right. So let us move on then. And we have a fourth video that we are going to present tonight. This is a company called Grassroots Solar. Their offices are in Owen Sound. There's 2 individuals who we interviewed who are co-owners, Santo Quartarone and Carl Bell. I think if you think that during this interview or that I have a form of laryngitis, we had a slight mechanical difficulty, but hopefully you'll be able to hear all my questions that I have to them. So Kevin, if you would be kind enough to start us on our last and final video for the evening. This afternoon, we're at the business of Grassroots Solar. We have with us Carl Bell and Santo Quartarone. How did I do, Santo?
Perfectly.
These are the 2 partners in the business, and we thank you very much for allowing us to be here. What we'd like to find out, first of all, is what is Grassroots Solar?
Well, Grassroots Solar is a retailer. We sell solar systems. We install them. We design them. We repair them. We're in the Grey Bruce area.
And how long have you been in the area?
This location here, 7 years, and I've actually been involved 20 years.
And can we get to a little bit of more philosophy or why you're doing this? I assume that people come to you with certain ideas, plans, or what they'd like to do.
There's a lot of new builds happening, so there's a lot of planning here in this area. We just had somebody here today, right, that is interested in a new build in about 4 years' time.
And from what I'm gathering is that there's a lot of talk about net zero homes. There's a lot of talk about how are the technologies improving? How are the costs doing? Can I ask you that?
The costs have stabilized in the last little while here. They'd gone down a fair bit, but now they've stabilized. We do have some issues getting a hold of products. We have to plan well. And like the customer that was just in this morning, they start up with this really early in the very beginnings of a new construction, and we work with them all the way through.
I assume that you get a variety of clients that look anywhere from going off-grid to adding to their house to make their home more efficient. Is that accurate?
That's true, yes.
And how many of these people that you have to sort of like teach to some degree?
Well, most of it is about education. It is.
At least 50% of it.
And that's why we're thinking of workshops as well.
I heard that you are possibly offering workshops?
Yes, we're thinking of it, yes. There's a space in the building here that we're going to consider having workshops in.
And what would you be offering in these workshops?
Well, on off-grid living, getting to understand your solar system, battery technologies with guest speakers, and the customer needs to be realistic about expectations concerning solar, you know, because some people just don't really understand what solar is about.
I assume that when people look at solar panels, they either think they know a lot or they know nothing.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And is that part of your role, is to educate and
to simplify things.
It's a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle, yes.
Do you feel that customers have a realistic expectation of what solar can offer?
I think, well, most really don't, right?
I would say most don't.
Yeah.
And a part of our job is the design, you know, so we have to do an energy audit, like he's saying here, to be able to know exactly what we're working with for the good times and the bad, you know, weather-wise and everything else.
Yeah. You can also...
a little bit about net metering?
Well, net meter is a bidirectional meter. So you produce the energy with your solar panels, and if you produce too much at one time, you get a credit that you have to use up within 12 months. But you have to apply for grid space. So if there is no grid space, and there is more and more regulations around net metered.
So when you're off the grid, you then have to rely on a way of storing power, do you know?
Yes, and that's where lithium batteries comes in.
Can you tell us a little bit about them, please?
Well, lithium batteries, longer lifespan, no maintenance, extremely safe, lightweight, improved discharge and charge efficiency. Not the cheapest on the market, but the lifespan is more and no maintenance, and the best investment you can make over time.
And you can use more of the battery's charge capability than you could with a AGM, like a gel battery or an acid battery. You can only use 50% of that, where with the lithium you could use up to 90% of it without damaging the battery.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but given how solar panels have come down about 90% in price over the last decade, and how economic is it for people to make this change or to even look at the possibility?
Well, considering the cost of getting hooked up to the grid, $7,000 a post. We have one customer that's going to cost him $67,000 just to get hooked up to the grid, and then have a bill for the rest of his life. Like a solar system can cost about $60,000, and he'll be off grid, no bill.
And it could be less than that. It's way
It could be less than that, but in his case, it was about $60,000.
It's just the size of the house, and
Yeah.
how many people are living in that
That's right.
house.
He's a high consumer, right? That's just, yeah.
So I would also imagine that a concern would be, well, what happens if it goes down and I don't have power?
Usually a generator backup is involved.
Mm-hmm. Or with a lithium battery as well, that helps a lot.
And I was also thinking you would be there to also service them, would you not?
Oh yes, we service everything. Yes.
Are most of your systems that you look at, are they, when we hear the term alternating current and direct current, can you help our viewers understand the difference and how it pertains to the systems that you install?
The solar panels are a direct current. So we're converting that once it comes to the house with an inverter back to the normal 220 volts AC. And that way the rest of the house is wired just like normal. And the batteries are there just to operate off of, basically. And whether we do the system as a hybrid, which we could add a small wind generator in there or whatever, but that's usually combined into the 220 volts, and then the rest of the house is just normal wiring.
People who come to you are not looking for short-term answers.
Most of them are not.
Can you elaborate a little bit about that? Is this more about lifestyle or something else?
But the environment, lifestyle, long-term investment.
What got you into this business?
Well, the love of being self-sufficient, being your own person, not relying on, outside sources. The way the world is going, it's important nowadays. It's a big.
I've always been interested in it, even since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so have I. Yeah.
And my father had been involved in it and done electric vehicles, the whole works before. So.
Is it possible that you could give us a range of various products that you offer when people come in to see you?
We've got the solar photovoltaic, we've got the small wind, we've got solar thermal for heat situations. We also use propane in a lot of situations on some of these off-grid situations where they were trying to eliminate any of the heating elements so that it takes less power to run.
And you offer a wide range, not only for homes, but for smaller applications?
RVs, small cabins.
These mini homes.
Mm-hmm. Mini homes. We're actually getting into that right now. These small 8x12 mini homes that we can just drop in place with the solar already installed.
And for the person who is a little bit ill at ease with the changing climate and weather patterns becoming more volatile, you really don't have to worry as much about the grid going off.
That's exactly right. Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who's living in Owen Sound or in an urban center, how can they make use of your services?
Well, a net metered, zero export, they can save on their electrical bill using those.
Still will have the backup there, so that if the grid goes down, they're not going to be affected.
Mm-hmm.
And what about this power bar? About it brings in power at a low price and then offers that to the house when the price of electricity is high. Is there anything to that?
Charging your batteries at night when the price is low. Yeah, there is.
So you offer the service?
We offer that. We have a system for that.
And a question I have is that, okay, I'd like to get you to do work for me, but how long are some of these things guaranteed for?
Well,
25 years.
20 plus.
Panels.
Yeah, for sure.
And most of the inverter packages are around 10 years, and then you can also buy optional extended warranties.
So, and there's something, as I said, so we're not looking at something just lasts a few years and then, whoops, where do I go?
We've got panels that we've reworked and worked with there that have been up for 40 years, and they're still producing. It's just that their efficiency is not as good as it used to be.
And anything else you'd like to share with our viewers about what they should be looking for, either from you or how they should be living themselves to be as energy efficient as they can?
I think the first thing is education. Maybe come to one of our workshops, do some research before you come in to see us. That's always best.
Environmentally, I think we all have to kind of wake up a little bit and make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can do to try and at least come close to net zero as we can possibly be.
Well, I thank you for taking the time with our viewers today, and we wish you success in your business.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that was our fourth video, and like I say, I apologize that my microphone wasn't working so well during that interview. But if anyone has any questions, do we have either Santo or Carl with us tonight? Because I did get a reply from Santo that he was going to be here.
It doesn't look like Vito.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I can supply, since I know them, if anyone has questions. I mean, I've seen the one question on small wind generation. Since I've been looking at small wind the last few years to add to my off-grid home. We're actually starting to do experimentation on the vertical axis small wind generator. Because you don't have to go nearly as high in height. They're not quite as efficient as the standard horizontal propeller type, but they don't require as strong a wind to get a reliable amount of power that for me will be used to supplement my solar panels. I have to admit, when the question said about wind damage and economics, every time you have moving parts, I always know that they have to be maintained. And as far as the solar panels, all I got to do is take the snow off. So I will pass that question, or if there are any other questions, on to Santo, and just like I would for the previous. So as a matter of fact, I think that we're getting very close to our end time. This was a very full-packed evening of lots and lots of information, and we just barely touched the tip of the iceberg, and we hope that we've given a fair amount of information, that there are many possibilities for improving one's own home. That's the one thing I found out, that the day that I think I've done a wonderful job, there's always something more that I can do to save. Our next event, which is happening in 2 weeks' time, Lee was nice enough to help us a little bit earlier when we had slight technical difficulties. We now go from home environment to the environment of our stomachs. And when we talk about food, local food, and we in 2 weeks' time, we will be visiting 4 local growers and small family farms. They will be the Saugeen River CSA. There'll be the Side Road Natural Farm, Persephone Farm, Market Garden, should say, and Glen Colton Farm. And they will offer 4 different points of view and ideas of how people can get involved and obtain local food from local growers. And again, I had roughly about 16 growers that I got in touch with. These just happened to be the 4 that responded the quickest. So I think that we'll call it for the evening as far as I'm concerned. I have to thank everyone for being part of this event. It's always nice to be inside when the weather's not the greatest outside. And so I'm looking forward to moving on to another theme in 2 weeks' time. As far as I know, that's all I have. And Barry, are you there? And if you'd like to close us off for the evening.
I will, Vito. Just thanks very much. And again, jam-packed with really good information about local folks doing really, really good things. And sorry they couldn't all join us, but I think if everybody can just go on the Grassroots Sustainability Network website, follow the links, you will see all these sessions are recorded. And as we move through this series as well, each individual video will be available to simply view directly as well. So with that said, thanks everybody for joining us, and please join us, sign up for this series. If you go on the website, you can register for all those events and you will be automatically reminded of the dates and that sort of thing. So that's pretty important. And it also gets us connected with you with your email address and that sort of thing. So unless anybody else in the organizing crew's got anything to say, I'd like to just thank everybody and say, if you're home, stay home. If you got to get home after this, drive safe and or walk safe, because I'm walking home. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. Okay. Bye for now. Thanks everybody for coming.